How much longer do you think President Putin's patience will last, since you have told us, along with nearly all of your colleagues on this show and others with whom you and I communicate, that his goal really is to degrade the Ukrainian military, and he's doing so patiently, methodically, and systematically. He does not want to send an Oreshnik into a Ukrainian government building. But at some point, I would think his patience will run out. What's your take on this, Colonel?
Well, you're asking a very important question, and unfortunately, none of us have ears in the Kremlin. But we have to assume a couple of things. President Putin is going to watch very carefully to see just exactly what shows up in Western Ukraine from the NATO members, primarily Great Britain, France, and Germany, and the United States. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if all of a sudden vast quantities of SM-6 missiles, this is your standard near hypersonic device, missile, whatever, that can strike with great precision, shows up, then that will have an effect on the Russians. The Russians will say, well, do we wait until these things are all fully deployed and operational, or do we strike first? They're going to wait and see if these Taurus missiles show up. If those kinds of things happen, then the Russians will be inclined to take very, very decisive action and move their forces further west. They're already on the outskirts of Odessa. They've got plenty of people on the ground west of the Dnieper River. They just haven't brought over the weight of their conventional force. That can be done very quickly. So Odessa could fall in a space of a few days. I know that the NATO members have sent some of their forces, particularly French, and I'm told some British, into Odessa. But like the Russians, these are in very small numbers, and they appear to be special forces types. But all of this points in the direction of an escalating war. And again, the Russians have to ask, how long do we wait before this poses a real existential threat to us? Or do we just wait or not wait? That's the question. And I don't know the answer to that, but I think President Putin probably has more fundamental concrete support from the Russian population now than ever. And there is no question in anybody's minds about the justice of his cause. Everybody has seen all the material from the bio labs that were discovered. They know what terrible things the CIA were involved with in planning. They know that the Ukrainians are now herding men in their late 50s, 60s into uniform to go become cannon fodder. They know that there are people in Ukraine openly talking about huge quantities of money that can be made by child and trafficking, human trafficking, as well as resale of goods, sale of mineral resources. And of course, Zelensky's been selling off agricultural land to the BlackRock and others. All of this is known in Moscow, and Moscow has to make the decision. Are we moving forward? Do we continue to go forward? Do we finally put an end to this regime, or do we wait until it gets worse? I don't know that answer, but I think President Putin is not surprised, sadly, by what President Trump has done. Remember, President Putin on more than one occasion has pointed out that he's watched every president transform into some version of John McCain. He didn't say John McCain, but effectively that's what he's saying. That's where we are.